Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host. We're going to talk about some breaking news as well as what's going on with the terror watch list. What do you need to watch about this terror watch list? I think it is the most dangerous thing that is being proposed. It's not just that it's coming against our Second Amendment. It's not just that it's going to be an infringement of our fundamental rights, another effort to change them into privileges, but we are going into these different devices. We are taking away all due process, and we're moving rapidly towards tools and devices and mechanisms on the part of the government that are the hallmarks of tyranny throughout history. Before we get to that, I want to tell you that we've got a sale right now. You've seen Tim Kennedy on talking about how he's certain products that he has used at InfoWarsLife.com, how valuable they were to him and his workout, how they gave him a boost. And we've got some of his favorite products here: Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Secret 12. We have them all as part of a Tim Kennedy special. Of course, he Special Forces operator, still in Special Forces. He's a UFC fighter, famous in his own right as a fighter, but he is a professional athlete. And so he knows what gets his body going. He's very much in tune to his body, more so than most people are. And he had this run through the sporting association, had them check it to make sure it wasn't going to violate any rules. They said, yep, safe. And he's telling us it's also effective. And so we've got some of his favorite supplements: Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Secret 12, 15% off at InfoWarsLife.com. These are the products Tim Kennedy uses in his Special Forces and UFC training that help him get to the next level. We also have 20% off of Alexa Pure water filters. And this is all water filters. This isn't just the big water filter units. It's also even the smaller ones, like the shower head units. Everything that's a water filter from Alexa Pure right now, 20% off at InfoWarsStore.com. You know, not only do you need to filter out the water that you drink, but even the water that you shower with. If you're in the city and they're putting in chlorine, look at the effects of chlorine when you heat it up and spray it out of the shower heads. That's why a lot of people will get a shower filter to keep from breathing the chlorine that is coming out of the shower. So all the products that are water filters from Alexa Pure, from the super high-quality gravity-fed Alexa Pure Pro water filtration systems all the way down to the shower filters, they're all 20% off right now at InfoWarsStore.com. Okay. Some of the news today, we've got Marco Rubio says he is now going to run for re-election to the Senate. Interesting. He's back. Just when you thought he was gone for good, he's back. And as we see also Sanders, who said he was staying in to the very end so that he could have some leverage at the convention. There's a report up on Politico that he is losing his leverage. As every day goes by, he's becoming more and more yesterday's story. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the Democrat convention, if anything happens. Or will Hillary have a complete lock? Now, along those lines, we have said all along that not only was the process rigged in the way that most people can plainly see. She started out with, 15% of the way she needed to be towards the finish line with the superdelegates. The whole process is rigged in that way, very openly, very openly. But because of all of these superdelegates, and about 15% of them, 10 to 15% in each state, were reserved for superdelegates, the delegates that were going to go to the convention. That meant that he would have to beat her by 10 or 15% in order to get the same number of delegates, because the Democrat Party makes every state a proportional allocation of delegates. So it's not a winner-take-all anywhere. So even if he beat her, and even if he beat her by 10 to 15 points, they wound up getting the same number of delegates. Anytime she beat him, it was a skunk, because she would get whatever edge she had, plus the 10 or 15% of the delegates that were already there. But of course, there's other ways that they rigged the election as well. And this is what we have to be concerned about when we come to the fall. And I talked about this back when we had the Utah primary. I thought it was kind of suspicious that the GOP had gone out and paid $80,000 in Utah to bring in Smartmatic. Now, this is the largest electronic voting machine company in the world. But it is also a voting machine company that has, I would say, the longest rap sheet in the world. Smartmatic started in Venezuela by some friends of Hugo Chavez. And they were involved in election after election that American officials said were being rigged by Hugo Chavez. And then they started selling their machines elsewhere throughout Central and South America, as well as the Philippines. And there is a long list from the Philippines to the Tabasco region in Mexico to Brazil to other Central and South American countries where people have said, hey, you know, something is wrong. Something is wrong. The voting machines go down. All of a sudden, 25% of the votes are just gone, and there's no audit trail with these machines. They just disappeared. How about that? Would you like to have an election where 25% of the votes, millions, tens of millions of votes just disappear? Well, that's already happened in some countries. And the more we put these electronic machines here, the more that's going to happen in America. And it will happen in America. In Brazil, where there is the currently the struggle for power that's going on there with a very, very unpopular female socialist president. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? She was roundly booed just before the election at a soccer event. She was down 10 points in the poll, and yet she suddenly won by 10 points or so on the re-election. And the interesting thing about that was that they didn't do any exit polls, because exit polls are one of the indications when you have somebody that is losing an election before, and they are maybe losing in the election afterwards by exit polls, but then the official polls say, hey, they won by a large margin. Everybody knows there was fraud involved. And so they shut that down. And the company that always did that for Brazil, that always did the exit polls for Brazil, just decided they weren't going to do them for that particular election. And then they got tens of millions of dollars in contracts from the Brazilian government afterwards. Looked like payola. Now, why am I going into this history of this? Well, because we've got an organization here. This is a report from DC Clothesline, a racketeering lawsuit exposing nationwide vote rigging and DNC primaries could derail Clinton, they say. This is a major lawsuit. It's on the verge of being filed by the Institute for American Democracy and Election Integrity. They were going to file it last week, but they said, no, we want to wait and get the results from California, because that was very important, and we think there may have been fraud there. They're going to take a look at that first, get that information, and possibly include that in the lawsuit. The group claims that in about 11 states, there has been a noted significant difference between exit polls and the electronic vote totals presented in the mornings after the primaries. These differences show votes appear to be shifted from Bernie Sanders to Hillary Clinton. You think they'd do that? And so we see, when we look at, they've got a table here, and they're showing the margin between them and the exit polls and the discrepancies in favor of Clinton versus the other polls that were there. And the interesting thing about this, of course, is that when you look at the margin, what is statistically significant? Well, they say that the U.S. government itself says that if there's more than a 2% difference between the official election polls and the exit polls, that is the boundary by which the U.S. government determines whether an election in another country has probably been stolen. And notice that the exit polls in these 11 states, they say, 2016 DNC primaries, they were significantly more than a 2% difference. One of them was, I think it was, over 10% difference, okay, there. They say this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of democracy, or I should say integrity. We need to have honest elections. And there's a number of ways that the elections can be stolen. They can be stolen by superdelegates, by the other processes. They can be stolen by having illegitimate voters. They can be stolen by stuffing the electronic ballot machines. That's one of the easiest ways to steal the elections. The easiest way is by electronic means. They say Richard Sharnon, a mathematician, statistician, author of the book Matrix of Deceit, has been reporting on the apparent shifting of electronic vote totals and the non-release of raw data from Edison polling research, okay? I'll tell you who they are in just a moment, since 2004. So he's been looking at this for 12 years. He's well known for what he calls the red shift. He says it's been a shift between exit polls and electronic vote totals, a difference of about 4 to 5% each year. And this constitutes a shift to the political right. You understand? This is not about left and right. It's not about Democrat, Republican. This is about corruption. And this is about rigging electronic voting machines and how easy it is to do it. And this guy who's been researching it for 12 years says typically it's a red shift. Typically it's a shift towards the red candidates, okay? And I hate the fact that they do that because red really has always been the color of communism. That's deliberately why they reversed that on you, by the way. Deliberately why they did that. But it's been a shift towards the right, let's just put it that way, or conservatives of about 4 to 5% each year. Very suspicious. But now what they saw in the primaries was a massive shift for Hillary Clinton. Now, the same people who are rigging this system for the GOP, if that's what's been going on, do you think that they could possibly rig this to make sure that Hillary Clinton wins? Because we've already got Ted Cruz meeting with GOP conservatives in a secret meeting reported by The Hill saying, yeah, we're planning to see what happens in the next election. You know, they're hoping that Donald Trump is going to lose because they're opposed to him because he opposes their globalist agenda of open borders, of trade treaties that were written by the corporations, of continual foreign wars. He opposes all of that. And so for those reasons alone, he must be stopped. Those are the vital issues to the establishment in both the Republican and the Democrat Party. That's why the establishment in both the Republican and the Democrat Party want to see Hillary Clinton win this election. And that's why these people who have control and can flip the levers in these electronic voting machines, they've been shifting it to the conservatives. You think they might shift it to Hillary Clinton so then they can run against her 4 years from now? Doesn't matter. It isn't even about them beating Hillary Clinton 4 years from now. It's about them getting their agenda through. Paul Ryan and others, Mitch McConnell and others. They want the open borders. They want these transatlantic trade agreements. That has to be run through as far as they're concerned. They have to have this globalism, this consolidation. Now, who are these people? This is kind of interesting. You know, when you look at the exit polls, I mentioned that in Brazil, after that dramatic reversal, that one-day reversal in the official election polls, remember the Brazilian president was down like 10%, and then after that, she's still very unpopular. They're trying to impeach her, and immediately after that, she was very unpopular. But for that particular day, with the official results, she won about 10%. How did that happen? And again, the exit polling company didn't do any exit polls. Now, we have an exit polling company here in America. It's called Edison Research Polling. You may not have known this, but they run all of the exit polling throughout the country since 1996. They run it as part of a pool. You know, they have these press pools. So when you go to cover a political event, in many cases, they don't let every single news organization into the event. They will have a press pool camera. It would just get too crowded. So what they will do is they'll have people who are part of the press pool. You will all get the feed from this one camera that's there instead of everybody having their own camera. So there's that kind of pooling that goes on with the press. Well, for the election polls, they have the National Election Pool. And this company, Edison Research, has, since 1996, provided all of the election polling, all the exit polling for ABC, NBC, CBS, the big three. In addition, CNN, Fox, AP, they all belong to this National Election Pool. And they all get their information from Edison Research Polling. Now, it's interesting, isn't it, that I don't recall, and I follow politics pretty closely, but I don't ever recall ever seeing any of these organizations that are part of the election pool that get this information from Edison Research. I don't ever recall seeing them publicize the kind of numbers that this organization, the Institute for American Democracy, they've got the numbers of the exit poll. And they're using that as the basis for their lawsuit, saying that Hillary Clinton and the DNC rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. But you've never seen these numbers that they've got here. They don't publicize those on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox, and AP. What you will see is you'll see cross-tabulations of demographics. They'll come out and they'll say, well, you know, this many of the women voted for candidate X, and this many of the men voted for candidate Y, and they'll break it down by age group. They'll break it down by income. They'll break it down by, of course, race, okay? Religion sometimes, okay? They'll break it down with all these different cross-tabulations of the demographics, but they won't come out and say, well, according to exit polls, Hillary got this many and Bernie got that many. You'll never see that. You'll never see the grand total because that would look kind of bad, wouldn't it? If that number doesn't agree and if it's radically different, way outside the margin of error of the regular polls, people would start to smell a rat, wouldn't they? So they don't report that information, do they? No. And so I hope that this lawsuit goes somewhere. I think that is very important. Again, they are waiting to get the crosstab results out of California to take a look at that. That's what we have to be concerned about in the general election, that it'll be stolen. That it'll be stolen, and it will be a joint effort by the Republican and by the Democrat establishment, who do not want to see a populist, nationalist movement against their globalist trade treaties and open borders. That's what we have to be concerned about. Now, what's going on with the gun control agenda that they're putting on? And as I've said before, in the aftermath of what happened, and we see all these efforts to shut down anyone who tries to say that what motivated this guy was Islam. Of course it motivated him. He was a homosexual. He had nothing to do with his guilt except to try to punish other people. He had no cross, okay? So he crucified everybody else. And it was his religion that motivated that. My wife has a friend from college, and she still follows people on Facebook. I don't do anything with Facebook. I hate that social media rigging. But anyway, she follows people that we used to know. And this friend of hers who teaches high school put up a thing on Facebook. I don't want to hear anything about Islam or Muslims. I don't even want to hear it. Don't even talk about that. This is a time to warn the gays. Oh, we don't want to talk about what actually motivated him to do this. We don't want to talk about the anger and the hatred and the religion that caused that. We don't want to talk about the open borders. We don't want to talk about the fact that Obama has gone in and has created all of this unrest in all these countries, as American government, not just Obama, but of course the Republicans before him. They create the wars, and then we reap the whirlwind from it, okay? Before I get into that, while I'm on this topic, let me go to this. Free Thought Project talks about the results of the Afghanistan and Iraq war. They say, in spite of the trillions that have been wasted and the thousands dead, there are more Taliban in Afghanistan than there were before 2001. Oh, and with us there's a lot more heroin that's being grown out of that region too. That's another thing, okay? But they talk about how we have essentially created this problem. It's not Donald Trump saying we're not going to let these people in. Maybe it's us killing them. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I train hard. I work hard. I'm always looking for the best way to be the best version of myself. During Special Forces selection, it's not like you could ever take the easy road. You can't take steroids to make, being a Special Forces operator easy. I'm always looking for the best and natural way to get myself to the limit. That's the idea of getting in there and doing real hard work, is changing who you are, becoming better, stronger, faster, and ultimately harder to kill. I have to have the edge over my opponents. I believe that InfoWars products, Super Male Vitality, that gives me the edge. I've been taking it, and I'm still getting faster and stronger every day.
Start your journey to Super Male Vitality today at InfoWarsLife.com.